Wait a second.
Abort, Scott. Abort now.
It's okay. He can't see me.
I can see you.
He can see me.
Hi. I'm Scott.
Did he just say, hi, I'm Scott?
What are you doing here?
First off, I'm a big fan.
Appreciate it. So who the hell are you?
I'm Ant-Man.
Ant-Man?
Even the Avengers know Ant-Man sucks. What's up, everyone? Today we're going to be ranking the top 5 MCU origin movies. These are a hero's first solo movie in the franchise, so characters introduced in movies prior to their solo debut are still eligible for the list. Let's get down to business. Wakanda Forever. I'm sure we all have or know someone who ran this line into the ground in the weeks following the release of this movie. And for good reason too. This movie was a cultural phenomenon. Everyone and their mother was talking about Black Panther when it came out. It was almost hard to believe because aside from the main villain, I don't think this movie does anything exceptional for film or even the MCU aside from the world building. However, I will say that this was a huge step forward for black superheroes in live action movies. Name me your favorite black superhero leading a live action movie that's not T'Challa. I'll wait. You can't. Forever an icon. Black Panther gives us a backstory to a powerful character that stands toe-to-toe with other MCU titans. Now, the plot is fairly by the numbers, especially for an MCU origin movie, but it does have some standout aspects. Number one being the soundtrack. God damn, does this soundtrack slap. The original score is great. It has an African theme that sets the tone really nicely, but the highlight comes from the soundtrack album made by Kendrick Lamar. He was originally only supposed to be doing a few songs, but he apparently wanted to match the film in its ability to address important themes, and deadass produced an entire album. This man went off so hard that he hasn't even released anything since. Great job, Kendrick. Drop some music, please. The other exceptional aspect of this movie is Killmonger. This movie essentially works as his origin as well, because a lot of the backstory involves both his and T'Challa's parents, and how their decisions influence the path that they're currently on. Killmonger's dad loved Wakanda and wanted to bring their peaceful mentality to the world. He died for his dream, and Killmonger was left fatherless as a child. This led to Killmonger wanting the same goal and thus the throne, so he could use Wakanda's weapons to free more people. He's a villain that you can empathize with, yet also an antagonist that challenges Black Panther's ideals as well. It enhances the character conflict we see with T'Challa, and really elevates Black Panther to a good movie rather than just an okay one. Doctor Strange. His character falls under the arrogant, intelligent, charming asshole to reform selfless superhero cliche. Now, this movie does this very well, but we have seen it before in the MCU. So what really makes this film stand out enough to make it on this list is the magic. The concept provides amazing world building for the MCU, showing that magic and magical entities have existed throughout time and can pose threats to humanity. But from a visual perspective, it makes the movie so engaging to watch. From Strange learning the basics to the more elaborate and detailed action scenes, Doctor Strange is a visual treat. Within the MCU alone, we've seen action cinema staples such as chase scenes taken to the highest level. Winter Soldier gave us one of the best car chases and on-foot chases in recent years. So as viewers, because we've been so spoiled, our standards to be impressed are pretty high. But with magic, Doctor Strange is able to make a simple concept like a chase scene extremely dynamic and unique, keeping seasoned moviegoers at the edge of their seat. The movie opens a window for whole new worlds of possibilities and concepts to be explored in the MCU. This movie alone introduces new concepts such as magic in multiple dimensions. It does this with introducing a new political system surrounding these concepts, and then gives us characters who have different lucid perspectives on these things. Monk Girl follows the Sorcerer Code, but takes in power from the Dark Dimension, while Mads once followed the code, but then chose to follow Dormammu. The movie's ability to introduce a concept, build interesting character arcs around the concept in one movie makes it feel really well put together. It allows you to look past how contrived the story arc and general plot is, because for every MCU cliche present in the movie, there's another extremely creative idea unique to Doctor Strange. SpiderMan Homecoming. Right off the bat, you can tell this movie nails certain fundamental aspects of Spider-Man. Him in the suit is great. The quips are quippy and consistent in virtually every action scene, which alone puts him above the other iterations in their single joke per franchise. But in all seriousness, there's a permanent tone of optimism that radiates off of him. You really get the sense that Pete loves being Spider-Man, especially when compared to the state we've seen most of our other heroes in the MCU. The movie centers all of its aspects around his youth, and it's great. Spider-Man is at his best when he's young, and this movie delivers. The performance is fantastic, with great casting of course, but that's status quo for the MCU by this point. What I really like about the movie is how it shows low stakes of neighborhood superhero activity escalating to something more. A true supervillain is initially too hard for him to handle, with Pete needing Iron Man to save his ass. Twice. But eventually he builds up being able to take down the baddie solo dolo. This movie also did the impossible and made Vulture lit for the first time ever. Now don't get me wrong, I love the Vulture just as much as the next Spider-Man fanboy, but can you really tell me any of these iterations were as dope or intimidating as this one? Mans didn't even need the wings on to have me shitting myself in these scenes. When was the last time you saw the Vulture appear and thought to yourself, oh no, dude was not afraid to brutalize kids, and had great motivation, the two factors that make a compelling villain. The movie also made Shocker lit and set up other villains for the future, which is nice and what you want from a Spider-Man movie. You can have multiple villains in a movie without needing all of them to be the primary antagonist. The movie also does a good job of showing the conflict of being Spider-Man. Peter wants to be social, but has to ditch Ned at the party to be Spider-Man. Peter wants to help his team in Nationals, but misses the competition due to Spider-Man reasons. Peter wants to have a nice night at the former with Liz, but ditches her ass to blow up her dad. I do have a few gripes with the lack of consequences for most of his decisions, but we can save that for another video. All in all, this movie is a great origin story for the character in this universe without actually having to be a direct origin story. Good stuff. What can be said about Guardians of the Galaxy? This is close to a perfect film. This movie just works. Introduces 5 characters, Infinity Stones, Thanos, his soldiers, Nova Corps, and much more, and balances it all perfectly. None of the Guardians are necessarily good people, yet this movie makes you root for them so much. Their morals and personalities inherently create a unique dynamic and tone never seen in the MCU before. This movie juggles being a comedy and action movie better than the best action buddy cop movies, yet somehow also manages to have more heart than most dramas. It does this with just the main 5 characters. Seeing their relationships develop with each other, along with finding out their own individual third-party relationships, brings a whole slew of emotional baggage for each of them to have explored. It's not only the characters that are well executed either. The plot is really interesting, centering around trying to acquire an Infinity Stone. Quill and the viewers don't know that the initial item he's trying to acquire at the start of the movie is an Infinity Stone, but learning what it is, what it means to certain people in the galaxy, and who certain people in the galaxy are, changes the motivations for each character and brings them in line to work together against the antagonist in the movie. While doing this, it also completely builds the world of the MCU in ways other movies until now have only teased at. And that's just the basic plot. Both the visual creativity and the soundtrack are masterclass for the franchise and can easily warrant whole video essays individually. This movie's amazing. RDJ is Iron Man. As soon as this movie starts, the charisma that RDJ brings to Tony Stark is apparent. I swear to God, I become more charming just watching this man. He brings an energy to the character that's just irresistible. The movie sets up who Tony is before Iron Man and shows his arrogant, intelligent, charming assholeness brilliantly. Selfish yet lovable. Like that sibling that you can't live without but always want to punch in the face. So lovable asshole Tony Stark gets captured by some terrorists using his own weapons, realizes the error of his ways, yada yada yada, superhero. Now although today it's easy to generalize the superhero archetype, it really was original back in 2008. All of mainstream superheroes up until this point were inspired by some sort of tragedy, usually involving a parental figure. Seeing a hero who was confident in who they were as a person before they became a hero was rather refreshing at the time. This movie does everything well. Super funny, Great action, well paced. The movie just flies by regardless of how many times you've seen it. There's a great supporting cast as well. I love Tony's chemistry with Pepper, Rhodey, and Obadiah. This movie could just be a 10-season drama, just dialogue between these characters, and I'd be eating that shit up.
See what I'm working on?
No. The less I know, the better. Now, what am I supposed to tell the press?
Training exercise. Isn't that the usual BS?
It's not that simple. An unfortunate training exercise involving an F-22
Haha,
yesterday.
classic. Most of the movie is setting up Tony's character and transition to Iron Man. So I'm not going to touch on the terrorist Obadiah betrayal plot. It's serviceable and gets us an antagonist whose motivations we believe in for the debut of the MCU Mirror Match final. There's not much else to say that we don't already know. This movie created so many iconic moments, bringing this B-tier superhero to motherfucking S rank faster than you can snap your fingers. Awesome. Thank you all for watching. Let me know if you think one of your favorite origins should have been on this list, and make sure to like and subscribe. I will catch you all later. Peace!